So good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for being here today again. Today is a very special day for us because we are going to be, reflecting about the book, the last lesson of the book Alert by Joanna de Angelis, psychography by Divaldo Franco. And the lesson today is Perennial Conqueror, where Joanna de Angelis are going to be bringing to us, again, a new alert, talking about Jesus and how we can always be learning from him. So thank you, everyone, for, that have been here from the beginning. And our study group is being recorded, so the old lessons can be accessed at the YouTube channel of Spirit Group of New York. So let us start today. The conqueror who left a noticeable mark in history with their conquests and greatness held their crown and scepter over the starving multitudes and the lives cut down in the battlefields. They had the defeated submitted to them, and under the yoke of cruel slavery where a living and a half-dead life of unspeakable physical and moral lacerations. Soon after, the conqueror's time ended, their glory and power were devoured by death. Finally, the conqueror is leveled with their victims, leaving them relegated to disgrace and disrespect of posterity. So here, Joanna de Angelis is going to talk to us about what it really means to be a victorious person. What are the requirements that, according to the perspective of the mortal spirit, someone will be or not be called victorious. So here she begins by bringing to us facts. So showing that people that at their time were considered to be great in the sense of having fortune, of being feared by others, of conquering lands and peoples. What happened to them? And how are they going to be judged by history? So we all know, and today we look at history, and when we reflect about the political aspect of things, the way people, depending if they were not in privileged position, they consider themselves, and how they look at others, abuse from their weaknesses. And but for the conquered of those times, and even today, because they measure their status by, according to how people regard them, or like I said, even if it's with fear. This is what Joanna de Angelis is bringing here to us, to make us reflect, because if today, in a way, we look back in time and it brings us horror thinking about what certain people or peoples did to others in terms of oppression, etc., we have to think about what are we doing today, and how we are also empowering, because sometimes it's not us ourselves, but we have a voice, and how we empower. I don't want to get into politics here today, okay? Please, but I mean, we cannot comment that without touching a little bit of that, but how we empower people to do like that, to do that. So it is our responsibility as well, right? Any comments so far? No? So should we read a little more then? Let's go there. Just a second. Okay, let's go to the next one. The conquerors themselves often established the regime which frequently pushed them into revolutions of hateful disputes. Often, cruel conquerors are followed by even more violent ones who punishes with impiety and terror. Unfortunately, this is not infrequent in the world today when external triumphs and conquests are pursued. So then again, here she continues on, on saying basically the same thing, showing the facts. But she brings a new thing here. She says, according to my interpretation, okay? What does she say here? Okay, there are those that were, the ones responsible, that were at the top of the pyramid, but they were not alone. And sometimes they were followed by people that were even more cruel than they were. So it would not be fair on our part just to judge a certain one person that was there, but to look at the whole of people that follow them and follow their orders. They many times disguise themselves in saying, I'm just following orders, but we know how much they have abused it. We don't have to go that far. If we think about World War II, for instance, the horrors that happened there, okay, it started with, basically one person doing all of this, but all the others were really taking pleasure in fulfilling the craziness of this one person, right? So this is really, it's really hard. Are you seeing my slides or not? Oh,
yes.
Okay, because it just showed on my screen that only now you were seeing, my screen, so I got confused. And like we commented before, for us to imagine that this is not happening in our world today, unfortunately, it's not also correct. It may not be that bad or not that bad in certain regions. In others, maybe it is. But it's still, we bring, or people, and some people bring within them the same personality, the same desire to do that. And it's very hard to escape from it. We have in this, the little book that we have just recently released by the United States Spiritist Federation, the book is Light Ahead, a message about, that is called Kardec and Napoleon. And it talks about the commitment of Napoleon in terms of how he was should be conduct himself in this new incarnation. And absolutely not was agreed beforehand that he would that he should crown himself emperor. We have indications, we cannot say for sure, that the spirit Napoleon was also the famous Julius Caesar of Rome. And probably Alexander the Great as well. So he had some incarnations in situations of extreme power and domination, and be respected and crowned as emperor. So if we just think about Julius Caesar and Napoleon, we see so many centuries that have passed. I think 18 centuries, more or less, and he still brings this desire of being in command, of working with, the conquering and seeing himself as an emperor. So what we are trying to say here is that although life has changed, positions have changed, it doesn't mean that our spirit still doesn't bring within us this desire of being in positions that we can dominate others. It can be intellectual position. It doesn't need necessarily to be positions of only of government. But how we can really try to submit people. Questions, comments?
I have it so sad to see. It's really true. Then the leaders use this bad example for the others, and we can see our small community inside families, they reply this and follow this example to dominate people, innocent people, like a domestic violence and other things. It's really true and so sad in our community still reply this example, bad example in our planet.
Yeah, in the Gospel according to Spiritism, there is a message that talks about domestic tyrants, that because of, they bring that, and because they cannot act like this in the community, they act like this in, in their little kingdom, so to say. So it is something that we have to pay attention to. In whatever the position we are, or whatever the situation we are, and especially when we are in a position of, prominence in the spiritual arena, like myself and others as well, we have to be very careful, because it is also a field where you can try to bring this side of your personality and use it in a detrimental way. We are not talking here about good leadership. We need good leadership, but that's why, she's talking here about perennial conquerors, meaning in the sense, when time goes by, in terms of history, what are going to be the leaders, the true leaders that humanity will think about following as an example? Again, Gandhi, for instance, that went there and promoted a revolution with peace. Jesus, St. Francis, other people that have dedicated themselves, I don't know, Louis Pasteur, something in the several fields, Beethoven perhaps, that, to bring joy, happiness, involvement to humankind, all those that were just satisfying their wings and thinking about them in a selfish way. So let's see how she continues. However, Jesus is a special case. He never used force or violence to establish his kingdom in the country of souls. He inaugurated the era of renunciation. He submitted with humility to the arbitrary transitory dominance who could not exempt themselves from the human condition they had to combat. So here is when she brings Jesus to the case. And we remember when Jesus said, my kingdom is not of this world, right? As well, thinking, you're fighting so much about, who is going to be in the best positions in the world, when it's not necessarily this world or the world as we are living in the moment that is going to be prevailing. So in this sense, understanding his knowledge, his superiority, how he could moral knowledge, he could have positioned himself before others, and he didn't, was exactly because he understood that. First, the human condition, that we don't evolve by leaps and bounds. We don't transition overnight, And he was very clear. He knew it very well, and he knew that the only way that he could make an impression was doing exactly the opposite. How come this one that could be dominating the world is not using his knowledge, his position, his power, all of that to be on the top of everything? But on the contrary, submitted himself, didn't care about others that use it and abused of their power. Even Pontius Pilate, in a way, by washing his hands when he was in a position of deciding things, he was deciding. He decided at that moment not to meddle in what he thought it was others' affairs, when he had power to stop all that folly. But he had he chose according to his own interest. He was thinking, I want to maintain my position here as a respected Roman in this community of Jewish, and so I will exempt myself to give a personal opinion. I mean, he tried, but not that much, right? And then he just said, whatever you decide, it's your choice, your responsibility. But he was in a position of command, and he could have stopped that if he wanted. So that's here the situation. Any comments, questions? Okay, let's go to. His voice, Jesus' voice, proclaimed love, and his lessons of goodness still touches the universal awareness. While worldly conquerors are erased from memory, he is increasingly exalted throughout centuries. The exact day of his birth among humankind is still debated, but one cannot deny his supreme message of human consciousness, freedom for those who identify themselves with him. Even for those who do not agree that Jesus, was the promised Messiah, or maybe because their inclinations more to a different path of spirituality, like, people that may follow more, Moses, Buddha, Muhammad, all of them agree that Jesus was special. We see Gandhi, for instance, saying that if we were to lose all the spiritual knowledge that we have, and only the Sermon on the Mount survive it, that would be enough for us. So we can say that even he followed a different religion, a different tradition, was doing what?
Calma.
Was
A minha?
sorry, there is a mic open here. Let me see if I can. Okay, so he, even though he was, again, following a different tradition, he showed the respect and the understanding of his spiritual value that of a discourse that Jesus brought. So, and again, comparing to the great, supposed great of their times, each time more they're getting into oblivion. I mean, we know or we mention certain names more to make sure that history doesn't repeat itself in that sense than something else, than to say, oh, look what this tyrant emperor Pharaoh did and how wonderful it was, and let us repeat that. No. Sometimes we just remember their names because of that, because we want to make sure that we will not be repeating it. And the thing is, the more we expand our understanding in terms of spirituality, the more we are going to appreciate the lessons that Jesus brought to us. And remember that I always like to say in this way, phrase it in this way, because again, Spiritists have the utmost respect for Jesus, the man, for Jesus, the Spirit. But we are not here exalting him, but what he did in terms of teachings, in terms of examples, bringing to us the true lessons of God, the natural law. So the worship here is always going to be direct to God, to his love, its love, mercy, and the messengers that come to us, although we will always admire and respect those that were the recipient of to bring this message to us. Okay, we understand that Jesus, according to our perspective, was the purest spirit that has come to us. And so it deserves even more. But here, again, what we are trying to say here is that the more we understand the message that Jesus sacrificed so much to bring to us, the more we enlighten ourselves, the more we will be appreciating and following it. And it's going to be part of us, about us as a spirit. Question, comments? Yes, Martin.
Yeah, I'm really troubled by the fact that there are so many sexual abusers that seem to be drawn to the Catholic religion. Why is that? I mean, it's all over the news. There's a new report out today about the number of children that have been abused over the past number of years, and they're all in the Catholic Church. What attracts them to that religion?
Okay. What we can say about that is that, first of all, unfortunately, this is not really new for us in terms of history. it always happened, but it was not brought up like we bring it today. So, because what we have to remember, Marley, is that we are only getting better. So if we do today, we are acting in a horrible way, it's because in the past, we act even in a more horrible way than we are acting today. So this was always a reality, but there was no voice before for people to come and to say, about all the oppressions and all the abuses that we can talk about that exist today and existed even more in the past. One of the things that they say of course, it has to be with the inclination of people, but repression, like the clergy imposes to their clergymen, sexual repression is never going to be a solution. Actually, we see that it even increases the possibility of this particular community being engaging in more, in more horrific situations. So they have to review that. They have to be on top of that. But unfortunately, like I said, it has been there for millennia, and we have to feel not I mean to say how good it is that at least now we are paying attention to that. It is bringing to the attention of people, and so this is a path for a solution. We may not have a solution yet, but it's only now that everyone knows about it, that a solution can really be implemented or start being implemented. But it's horrible. We still have.
It seems that even the nuns sexually abused girls. I read
Yes.
a report on that this morning. It's horrible.
Yes. Yeah, it is horrible, and unfortunately, Marley, it is a field in the existence of humankind that we all have serious adjustments to make. The field of sexuality, and so nowadays we see everything, and it is. Like I said, we are stirring the pot. Everything is coming to the surface to be seen, to be analyzed, and in this way not to be hidden anymore. And then it can allow solutions to be put into place. Of course, we will only see the end of all this when we ourselves start doing the changes ourselves, right? Yes, it's hard. It is hard. Okay, so let's go to the next one. With a date set aside in history to remember his birthday, he is, however, a constant presence in the hearts of those who seek and trust him and his mercy. In truth, the simple memory of Jesus sweetens sentiments and harmonizes the mental vortex. In the endless succession of time, we need him more than ever in these tumultuous days. So you see what Joanna de Angelis is doing here. She starts talking, like I said, about the notion of, victorious people, conquerors, and the way they conquer by oppression. And here she says, but there was one that have conquered because of his altruism, his love to humankind. And the more we look again to Jesus as being the path to life and truth, the more we will be experiencing those different situations that we will want more. We don't want anymore to be in situations like, the one that Marlene just brought to us here. We really want, us to be able to move away from this horrible condition that we still bring within ourselves. And there is just one solution, is to follow the example of Jesus. That's why, the more we understand that, the sooner we understand that, again, talking about the message, right? And those perennial messages, they are present in so many other philosophies and religions. They were brought before, the notion of respect, moral, do to others what you want to do, the golden rule, to others to do to yourselves. And then she says, meditate for a moment in the sublime message he gave us in the name of God. Allow him to be born in the landscape of your inner world. Do not remain indifferent to the convulsion that levels and agitates humanity. Carry him in your soul. Offer your love, giving yourself with joy to the service of perfect fraternity. So here we have two stages. The first stage is the one of recognizing the message and the need that we have to implement this message in terms of examples in our day-to-day lives. The second stage would be not only to remain indifferent, but being those that also, having had the possibility of knowing and understanding better, to position ourselves among the complainers and say, yeah, the world has no solution. Look at everything that is happening. Oh, how bad it is. Yes, there is so much that needs to be fixed in our world, starting with us, like Gandhi. We are still mentioning him a lot today. Right? Be the change you want to see in the world, right? Instead of complaining that others are not doing anything, do it yourself, right? This is what Gandhi brought to us. And the third stage is for us to do something about it. So recognize, not becoming indifferent and complainers, and do something about bringing positivity to the world. Positivity in terms of loving, in terms of fraternity, in terms of helping things to change. Because people are observing. The same way we are observing people that are doing bad things, people are observing us also doing good things, and they feel ashamed because they cannot do that as themselves. That's why they even try to move us away from our determination, because it really bothers them too much. it's so easy when we can say, look around, everyone is just doing bad things. I can do bad things myself. And then you think you can have your conscience clear. But when you have some people, ordinary people like ourselves, okay, we are ordinary people doing good things, they will say, there is something wrong there. No, there is something wrong in you, not in them, right? You know, this is your way. This is what you have to be today or tomorrow, depending on you. So it is hard. It is. Change makers always live with great sacrifice. It's not easy to be recognized. I just heard last week a phrase by Margaret Mead. She said, never doubt what a small group of conscious and engaged people can do in terms of changing the world. In fact, it was always like this that the world has changed. I had the phrase in Portuguese here. I'm just translating now to English, but it is that. So when we think, oh my God, we are so few, I will never change the world. The world was always changed because of few people doing the right thing. And when we think about it, so let's not worry too much about numbers. We're invited here to do our part. Comments, questions? Okay, so let's go to the next one. This Christmas, so she wrote a message for Christmas. And we are not that far away from it, right? Deliver yourself to goodness by toasting the divine friend with your collaboration. In your deliverance, he may be born or reborn in you and through you for your brothers and sisters in arms. He, the perennial conqueror, is invincible and insurmountable. Well, Jesus is absolutely the example. We had others, and that we can follow and should follow as well. If Jesus is too much on the top, let's go to the ones that perhaps are closer to us. Let's think about Peter, that was a very moody person. Denying Jesus. Thomas, that was very skeptical. I need to touch your wounds, otherwise I'm not going to believe. But the thing is, we have to keep on moving in this direction, of perfecting ourselves. And it's about time that instead of us look for examples in history that are going to be detrimental to this progress, or this real perennial progress we want to achieve in us. It's about time that we look for people that is only going to inspire us. We have some of them living with us today. We had a few that lived with us not a while ago. We can talk about Mother Teresa, Chico Xavier, for instance, and other representatives that we have. We have today a Dalai Lama, Thich Nhat Hanh living with us, a Divaldo living with us. So many representatives from different religions that are truly, truly committed to raise us to the next level. So it's about time we learn to appreciate them and to have them as our heroes, because we still are choosing our heroes very badly, right? They don't have to be movie stars, etc. They have to be, the many times the invisible ones to the eyes of the world. They are, working their little plot of land, but making a big, huge change in that area that was bestowed to them. Any comments, questions? Yes, Marlene. Let me see if I can unmute you.
There we go.
Okay.
I was wondering if you might define what universal fluid is. I honestly don't know. I see it all the time in the written form, but I just can't figure out what it is.
You and everybody else, Marley. We have very, a small idea. We do not even have the vocabulary to describe it. Science doesn't have the vocabulary to describe it. In terms of science, we talk about the dark matter that is 94% of the universe that science do not know, cannot explain. And as spiritists, in theory, we know that is the raw material for everything else. Okay, it's like a potent ingredient that will bring about life in all of its forms. It will bring about the representation of it's like, I have a dough and I will do with that whatever is necessary. So I will make it a chair, I will make it a human body, I will use it for the, to build the Paris spirit. The only thing that we know that is not made of this universal fluid, and actually sometimes we use the universal cosmic fluid, and actually universal and cosmic means the same thing, one representing Latin and the one Greek, so is a redundancy. But sometimes we say cosmic fluid or universal cosmic fluid. But what are the other is suffices. The only thing that is not made out of this energy, fluid, for lack of a vocabulary, is the spirit. Of course, considering God as being the creator, the spirit is not made of this. The spirit is really something else. But all the rest, but then for us to know exactly how it is, the densification in my book about magnetic and spiritual healing, Practical Guide for Magnetic and Spiritual Healing, I even made a little chart, going from the universal fluid to everything else that it can become. But the thing is, what the universal fluid really is, we don't know. We just know that it was created by God in the same way that we were. So we have God, matter, that is the universal fluid, and spirit. And we don't know much about any of them. Oh my God, right? About God, we know very little. About understanding this energy, this fluid, how it came about, how it is, how it can be condensed. And sometimes I even look and say, this cup is universal fluid. My body is universal fluid. The air that I breathe is universal fluid. It's too much for us as today. And try to understand the spirit apart that we came from a creator and we had a beginning not having an end. We still know very, very little. So that's why I said at the beginning, we don't know. I will not even say the majority doesn't know. I will say we don't know, all of us. Some of us may have a little bit more of understanding because they are in the field of science, they understand, they study this dark matter, etc. But it's still, we don't have a definite answer. So your question is great, but we don't have an answer. And Philip.
Yes, I have two questions. First question is that for this book, is the same copy going to be used in England and the United States?
It's always like this, yes.
Okay. Second question, do you want any of us to review now that you have the final copy ready?
Absolutely. I will be reviewing it first, to see if everything is okay. And then, I mean, having, especially you, the Americans, reviewing that would be great as well, too, for a final screaming, because there is always something. It's impossible. I feel so happy when I get in my hands, one of those, important publications, even newspapers or magazines or, books. And my eye immediately catches a mistake. I said, oh my God, thank God.
To the door.
There is, I mean, I could say that up to this day, I haven't read anything where I haven't found any kind of mistake. So instead of being too critic about it, I say, thank God, this is something that really does happen. Do you know about the story of the damned Bible? Yeah. I think I'm not so sure who was the king. Maybe it was even the King James Bible. I don't remember quite well. He committed a group of at that time people from the clergy, of course, would be the writers, to put together a new, edition of the Bible that was going to be released on his behalf and all of that. And so they work it carefully with the Bible, making copies, hand copies, etc., and doing, those publications. And when it was all ready and celebrating and this and that, after they were published and distributed, they realized that the 10 Commandments, one of them that should have the do not, the not, they forgot the not. So do not kill, they forgot the not. And I watched that in a TV program that was talking about brain and how our brain can be so conditioned to certain knowledge that even when we are doing the, reading the written words, we will read what we already know, not necessarily what is written there. And so that's why they were explaining, this. It was knowledge that they knew by heart so much that there was no way that they would be reading that and not seeing the not, but it was not there. And I think we have one of the copies of this Bible, one of the few that have sort of survived it, in the New York library. I'm not so sure, but of course the king had to recall all of them. And they had to fix it with, putting the knock. So there is always something. And yes, so